Hey everybody, what's going on? You're watching The Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Dominic Monaghan is here with us. He's got his brand new movie, Edge of the World. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. Hanging out. Starting my day. Starting
Awesome.
my day off strong.
I like it. You got the tea. We're doing our interview. I mean, everything's
Yeah.
rolling right now. You got the new movie coming out. So we're going all the way back to the 1830s. Yeah, there you go. I like that little Star Wars action there. I like it. Let's talk about this movie. It's set in the 1830s. It seems like it's pretty fascinating. What was it like putting it together?
I'm a big fan of that part of the world. You know, I've been lucky enough to travel to Southeast Asia probably 10 times or so. And I love the food there and the people and the animals and the weather and everything about it, really. It's an amazing part of the world. So when this opportunity kind of presented itself for me to be able to come on board as one of the producers and also one of the actors of the film, it gave me a chance to continue to get to know that part of the world. You know, the character that I play is kind of stuck between the kind of British Empire and the romance of Borneo, and obviously the person who he's trying to protect is also having that experience, but clearly very quickly kind of Brooke starts to become much more of a Borneo native than an Englishman, you know. So it's fascinating for me to be there. Like I said, I love jungles. There's a lot of no acting required in these type of scenes because you are hot, you are sweaty, There are things biting you. You know, the sun is roasting. So it was a blast. I had a great time.
How hot did it get in the jungle there?
It got like, I don't know, the hot days were probably 115, something like that. It was, you know, dangerously hot at times where you had to go hide, you know.
You're somebody who really likes nature, and you mentioned you travel around the world. What's it about this part of the world that you find so interesting, or just that makes it special in your opinion?
Well, the jungles are very lush. Excuse me. The jungles are very lush. There's a lot of unspoilt jungle there. I mean, I think, you know, we are obviously struggling with trying to keep old jungles around instead of flattening them, you know, to try and benefit humans. So there are little pockets in the world where there are some old jungles that date back, you know, hundreds of millions of years, and Borneo is one of those places that those forests are shrinking and the animals living in those forests are struggling because of that, but we're still able to see some of these kind of ornate areas, you know. The food is extraordinary. I mean, the food it's hot, it's spicy, it's soupy. They have a lot of vegetarian options. It just speaks my language, you know. I just absolutely love it. The people are lovely. There's a strong kind of Buddhist slant in that part of the world. I'm not Buddhist myself, but some of the kind of ideas behind Buddhism in terms of just being peaceful and being kind and being helpful to your fellow man and the animals that we share our planet with is something that I respond to. I like travel, you know, so my agent had said when this opportunity came up, he said, you know, we only have 2 or 3 clients in our entire roster that we think would even consider this, because most people don't want to go to Borneo for 2.5 months to do a movie. But I was like, oh, that's me. Come on, let's do it.
It's not even a second thought for you. You're the #1 guy on that list.
It's like, it's one of the reasons to go, you know. I like going to places that don't speak my language, where we don't use the same money, where the customs around breakfast and you know, any aspect of life is different and something for me to learn. That just sparks my curiosity. And it is, if anyone out there is listening and they're considering at some point, once we move out of all of these COVID complications, to travel to Southeast Asia, you know, I mean, Cambodia and Laos and Thailand and Malaysia and obviously Borneo, just incredible parts of the world, you know.
It just opens your eyes to a different way to live, right? Especially in the United States, we live a certain way, eat certain foods. People are doing it so much differently. And then also spiritually too. There's just so many different ways to live. And it's just nice to think about doing it a little bit differently when you're in the rat race here in the States.
Yeah, there's so much to learn from travel and from seeing how other people live. I mean, you know, I think it's a pretty strong, excuse me, observation to see that they don't have the same kind of financial opportunities that we might, but they're incredibly happy people. They look after their families. They have fun with their friends. They're caring and kind. And, you know, it's a great eye opener to realize that, you know, as you said, DJ, life isn't all about the rat race and chasing after money. You know, life is about family and friends and good food. And that's what I experienced over there. It was fantastic.
Yeah, life's all about experiences and soaking them up. And you've had some incredible experiences personally, professionally. I mean, like you said, you're a global citizen, but, you know, take me back a little bit. You come to the States, you come to Hollywood for the first time. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like 20, 25, something like that. And, you know, I was doing all the stuff that people do. I was taking pictures on Hollywood Boulevard. I was going to Disneyland. I went to the Hollywood sign. You know, put my hands in you know, the footprints on outside the Chinese Man's Theatre. I did all that stuff. I remember being in Manchester and packing my bag to go to LA and stopping for a second and thinking, wow, I am literally packing a bag and moving to Hollywood. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing the cliched actor thing. You know, it's probably going to turn out like every other cliched actor, which is coming back 6 months later with my tail between my legs, you know. So I had to experience that too. LA is an extraordinary place, lots of different cultures. Traffic is crazy. Restaurants from all around the world. It's a melting pot of culture. The weather's, you know, crazy, but there's so much to do. You can go to the beach, you can snowboard, you can go to the desert. I loved it. It was an overwhelming place at first, and then I also had to look for a job at the same time. You know?
Yeah, certainly a lot going on there, and you're trying to build your career, and you know, things are starting to move along, and I feel like Lord of the Rings was obviously a big one for you. So what do you remember about, you know, before that hits and just getting that part and what that meant at that time?
I think like it was probably not until my kind of early 30s that I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do for a living. I'm not going to have to eventually say, well, I gave it a go and it didn't work out, you know. And that was after Lord of the Rings. That was probably just after doing Lost and then starting to do other stuff. I thought, okay, I guess this is my job now. I always wanted it to be my job now, but now it seems like it actually is. So I think actors are always kind of insecure from a career point of view as to what will happen. I was just a jobbing actor, you know. I'd done some films and TV in England. I'd done some plays. You know, I was trying to pay the rent and went for an audition for Lord of the Rings and then went for several more and ended up getting it. And obviously that was life-changing because that brought me to LA and that changed my whole outlook on what my career was going to be. But a lot of that is luck. A lot of that is being fortunate, taking your opportunities, capitalizing on those opportunities. You know, you can never sit still as an actor. If you've got a job, you need to use that job to turn it into 3 other jobs. That's kind of how it goes. It's a hustle, you know.
It never stops, right? I mean, even when you get Lost, for example, you don't know if that show is going to get canceled. You don't know what the nature of it was going to be, right? You're just trying to ride that out for as long as you could. So just take me back there. I mean, when did you finally feel secure? Like, okay, we got to smash it here. I'm okay, at least for right now.
Well, I don't know really. I mean, Lost kind of caught fire. And then the character that I played went on an interesting arc, which put me in a place where, you know, people were talking about that specific moment in that specific show. And I think, obviously, that was after 3 years of Lord of the Rings being a big hit. But I don't know. I mean, you're never really comfortable. I mean, if someone said to me, "How happy are you with your career?" You know, I'd give myself like a solid 6.5, you know, like I don't think like, oh, I'm smashing it and like I've got 5 jobs this year and 8 jobs next year. You know, I'm still trying to figure out where this all leaves us after COVID and what we do next. And also, you know, I'm still kind of fighting for those roles that another 15 or 20 actors above me are fighting for as well, you know. So I'm happy that it's been able to pay my rent and being able to live the life that I've lived, but it never really stops. And I think as soon as you're satisfied, it might be time to quit, you know?
Yeah, you can't be satisfied. You have to keep going. And I think it's really important what you said, because you can have these big parts, but you're still fighting with all these other people to continue your career and continue to do things. And, You know, one of the interesting things I think about is I talked to your old colleague, Michael Emerson, a little while back, and we were just talking about the experience of filming Lost on that island. And I asked him, like, have you been back to the island? And he said, no, I haven't been back. Have you thought about going back? Is that something that ever crossed your mind?
I definitely thought about going back. I've got friends that live there. I don't know, man. I mean, going back to Oahu for me in a lot of ways would be like walking around a haunted house, you know. It's there's a lot of ghosts there. There's a lot of baggage there. I had a great time on that show, but you know, I was in a relationship on that show, made friends on that show, fell out with people on that show, consistently have friends from that show. It's not just a TV show for me. It was 6 years of my life in a crazy kind of topsy-turvy roller coaster. So I think revisiting Oahu would be painful in a lot of ways. And also in a lot of ways, I kind of did it. Do you know what I mean? Like people say that to me all the time. If you could do Lord of the Rings again, would you do it? If you could do Lost again, would you do it? I did it. I did it 100%. I was there. I sweated. I gave everything. I committed completely. I don't need to revisit it. It's been done. And if you need to revisit it, you can watch the show, you know.
Yeah, you like what's going on in your life right now, right? So many people, when they get that question, they're clinging to the past. They're trying to go back to that time. You lived that time. It was great. You're on to the next thing. There was some stuff that sucked too. You're on to the next thing. I think it's just important to have that frame of mind ultimately, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much value there is in looking back or necessarily looking forward. You just have to be in your present and enjoy that present moment, because ultimately that's all we had. I very much enjoyed my experience on Lost, and ultimately it was a hugely rewarding experience. And all of the jobs that I've done, I've spun them into the positive, even if they've been challenging. But like you said, at the end of the day, you do it, you finish, everyone has a big party. Cool, that was great. Bam, on to the next one.
Well, how about the time right after Lost? Because you had so much time on that island, so much time on that show. What was it like just, taking the next steps and establishing a career after that?
It was tricky because I was then being offered a lot of kind of drug addicted rock stars and musicians, and you're just like, well, I've just done that for 6 years. I don't really want to do that again. The industry struggles to try and think of you outside of the pigeonhole that they've put you in, So we had to wait a little bit to decide what to do next. I was obviously back in LA, moving from one house to another, and yeah, just trying to figure out what to do. Did I want to do another TV show after 6 years on something that in a lot of ways kind of limits your opportunities? Did I want to do TV and reading a lot of scripts and just trying to make sense of the next steps. I think I did Flash Forward, which they had talked about going for a long time. It ended up getting cancelled after the first season, which was very strange for me. I'd never at that point been involved in a show that got cancelled. So I was always like, oh, what? They just stop it and they just do whatever they want. It's confusing to me. But yeah, that's just life as an actor. You can never predict what's going to go on. You show up, you do your job, and the rest of it is all random.
The ultimate freelance job. Yeah, people don't understand that enough. And, whether it's going to the jungle or producing or doing the nature stuff, what's most important to you now, just in terms of the storytelling you want to do, the content you're making now?
Well, I kind of like split myself in different ways. I'm always going to be making conservation-based nature shows because I think we have to consistently hit people over the head with the message of, we're blowing it and there's an issue here and we have a problem with food and air and, forests and animals and plants and trees and all that kind of stuff. So I'm constantly just trying to say to people, look, here's a problem that we have created and here are ways that we can solve it. And these are things that we can do to alleviate the problems that we've caused. So I'll always do that. I just launched, launched a podcast with Billy Boyd, who I was in Lord of the Rings with. It's called The Friendship Onion. It's out now. So I'm doing a few podcasts. I've got that and then a couple of kind of fictional podcasts going on. And then in terms of movies and TV, you just kind of reading and waiting to find something that gets you up in the morning. Most of the scripts that you read in my business are relatively dreary and you've read them before and it's easy to say no, even though you want to work. and you just have to wait and kind of gamble on yourself. So at this point, spending a lot of time working on the podcast and excuse me, and getting ready to see what I do next.
How do you think we fix the dreary nature of scripts? I mean, what does that ultimately come down to? Does it mean, you know, folks like yourself writing more scripts? I mean, how do we shift that? Because I think there are a lot of people that feel the same way, where it's like, we've done this movie before, we've done this TV show. How do we go about changing something like that?
Yeah, I think we're kind of locked into a studio system that is telling us that, you know, you need an act one that ends after 20 pages, and then you need an act two that splits the main characters up at the end of that second act, and then the third act, everyone comes back together and there's a marriage, or there's a shootout, or there's a party, or there's a fight. You know, I mean, it becomes very formulaic, and that's the safe point that most studios are willing to bank on, because it's a script that they think will do well because it reads like the other 3,000 scripts that have come across their desk. You know, I think there are filmmakers out there that push the boundaries and try and change things a little bit. You know, someone like Gaspar Noé or Darren Aronofsky, or, you know, Sam Mendes or Christopher Nolan. They're all trying to play around with this kind of construct and have fun with it. You know, we need to keep going to the cinema, and we need to keep supporting independent cinema. I love some superhero films. I love some science fiction, massive space operas, but I also like tiny little independent films that come out of Scandinavia or South America or Africa. We need to support those filmmakers, because they're the imaginative people that are thinking outside the box that are going to ultimately change it.
Yeah, we need space for all those different movies, right? Before I let you go, one of the fun little wrinkles of your career was the Eminem music video you did, Love the Way You Lie, which I was checking out earlier today. How did you wind up on that with Megan Fox?
You know, it's funny. I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, they had asked me to leave a message for their niece because their niece is called Charlie and she's watching Lost, and they wanted me to do a little Charlie thing from Lost. And they were saying, you know, this girl only knows you as Charlie from Lost. She doesn't know anything else you've done. And I said, well, that's kind of funny. But I said, the other day I was walking down the street and some guy came over to me and said, are you that guy in the Eminem video? And I said, yes. And he said, have you done anything else in your career? And I said, oh, you know, I've done a few things. And then I just walked on. And I thought, wow, he's only ever seen me in an Eminem video. That's really, you know, kind of fun, you know. I was attached to a film that didn't end up going. I was supposed to be playing the lead in a kind of independent science fiction film that didn't go. But the director and I had spent probably a month chatting and meeting late night in restaurants and bars and cafes and just workshopping the film and the script and trying to make sense of stuff and coming up with ideas for costume and hair and all this kind of stuff. And one weekend, or one Friday, I think, he called me and said, what are you doing this weekend? And I thought he was just inviting me to another dinner to break down this script. And I said, nothing, I don't have any plans. He said, do you want to be in an Eminem video? And I love Eminem, you know. And I said, yeah, sounds great. And he said, okay, well, let me go clear it with Marshall and then I'll get back to you. And then he called me 20 minutes later and said, yeah, you're in. So I was like, okay, cool. And then on this, I think we shot on the Saturday, Sunday, and I think maybe a little bit on the Monday. And that was it. It was done. I went to Boston to see Eminem play at a baseball stadium, and Jay-Z supported him. And that was a blast. And they played the video behind him on stage, and the stage was, you know, it was extraordinarily long and big, and then a massive video of the video. And halfway through the song, he like pointed at me and he was like, look, there's the guy from the video. And the entire audience like turns around and we're like, oh, hey. And I was like, oh, hey guys, how's it going? I was stood next to Lady Gaga, which was fun. Yeah, it was a blast, man. I had a great time.
It's unbelievable how this stuff lives on, right? Whether it's music video, I mean, even the next generation watching Lost, I mean, it's timeless. It must be a trip for you to think like there are young teenagers now watching this show that was in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, Billy Boyd's son, who's a good friend of mine, is 14, and he's currently watching Lost. He had no idea about it. He knew that it was a show that had done well, but to him, it's as obsolete as The Twilight Zone or 2020. He just doesn't know what it is. And he asked his dad, is it good? And Billy said, yeah, it's good. You should watch it. And he put it on, and now he's addicted, and he's on a Lost tear, you know? So yeah, it's weird. It's weird, man.
I think that's kind of the way it goes for most. Dom, really appreciate you hanging out, man. Congrats on everything, and we'll talk to you down the road, all right?
Sounds good, DJ. Look after yourself.